Mild autism, does it exist? Is there such a name? What is it? Does it have any other significance in the diagnosis criteria? What are the causes for mild autism? What are the other names for mild autism? Welcome back, chameleons, to my channel of Life of an Aspie. For those of you who are new, I'm Aspie Answers. I'm all about creating, educating and advocating, as well as navigating through the life of autism and mental health, as well as sharing my life stories and tips and advice with autism and mental health, as well as taking you all on certain fun and games when I'm able. So if you don't see any of these and more, feel free to smash that subscribe button on the bottom right hand corner, then turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. So you may be questioning with all those questions as illustrated earlier based on the topic, what is mild autism, right? There is no obviously official diagnosis called the mild autism, yet the term that has been used along with high functioning autism obviously is the case here, or in some cases being used as a form of a diagnosis, even though, as we know, high functioning versus low functioning, as I said before, of autism is almost like a conceptual idea of a functioning label, which again, as I said, that many autistic doesn't like these type of labels put in front of them. What exactly do people mean when they use this term? So the brief history background of that terminology is back in 1990, infantile autism was defined in all cases as severe and disabling disorder. No one with an autism diagnosis would be expected to succeed in school, was seen or make friends or hold down a job. In 1994, however, Asperger's syndrome was added to the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders of the DSM-IV, which then basically, again, in 2013, as I clearly stated so many times, being removed out of the Diagnostic Manual. Those with Asperger's syndrome, however, were characterized as bright, verbal, and highly functioning, while also demonstrating some autistic-like behaviours. In 2013, the diagnostic criteria changed again when the DSM-IV was published. Asperger's syndrome is no longer a diagnosis, as I clearly mentioned on one of the videos, which you can click above me or below me to find out more to the reason behind it, or just some information based on this if you want to learn more. Is that the manual provides just one diagnosis for all people with autism, which is autism spectrum disorder, or ASD in this case. People with autism spectrum disorder, or ASD, may or may not have severe speech delays, sensory processing challenges, specific types of behaviours or other symptoms, because like again, as I clearly mentioned, that every autistic is different. Once you meet one autistic, don't forever assume that he or she is the same as every other autistic you meet, because it's a whole different ballgame. It's this whole spectrum from the high to the low functioning stages, which again, as I said, will likely offend people this late. While people with autism spectrum disorder, basically, or shall we say ASD, typically have problems with social communication. These problems range from the extreme non-verbal with aggressive behaviour to the relatively mild problems with reading social cues such as vocal information and body language, or some other form of characteristic traits. It could be that they can't read sarcasm very well from people, or they can't, tell the difference between something as a joke versus sarcasm, whatever. Now, a diagnosis of ASD includes a level of support from 1 to 3, as I clearly mentioned in one of the videos, which you can find in the iCard and in the description box below me, with the level of support ranging from level 1 to level 3, describing people who need the most support. However, describing someone as level 1 autism has not really caught on. However, many people have continued to use the term Asperger's syndrome to this day, but even this term doesn't correlate exactly to high functioning or mild autism. So mild autism symptoms to look out for. Certain symptoms must be present in order to qualify for a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder, or ASD. Even people with mild autism, however, therefore may have significant developmental and sensory challenges that are severe enough to get in the way of normal activities and relationships, be it friendships, be it, having a partner in their life, be it relationships with their co-workers, the boss, the teachers, or wherever they may be. While these symptoms may be present before the age of 3, it's often the case that the milder symptoms may go unnoticed until the child is a bit older, especially for girls. If the symptoms appear for the first time after a child is 3 years old, they will not qualify for an autism diagnosis, however. They may, however, be diagnosed with a less severe social communication disorder. If a child is truly autistic, these symptoms will include the following: problems with back and forth communication that may include difficulty with conversation, body language, eye contact, and or facial expressions, difficulty in developing and maintaining relationships, often due to difficulty with imaginative play, making friends, sharing similar interests, or just interest in general. 3, preference for repeating the same actions, activities, movements, or words over and over again, even if there is no obvious reason for doing so. Classic here is basically mimicking behaviours versus echolalia, basically, which I clearly mentioned a little bit about echolalia and scripting based on one of my videos, as well as just echolalia in itself, so I'll link it in the icon and in the description box below me. Find out more of what I'm sharing with you all today. But a classic example also is sometimes with the same actions can become like an obsession or an like interest of some kind of really just doing stuff. So therefore a classic one is like maybe they're so OCD about lining things up in order, be it whatever it is, like maybe their classic toy of like a classic toy collection with different colors maybe, or just different makes and models of those classic colored toy models, or what have you. Number 5 is restricted interest combined with in-depth knowledge. An autistic child, for example, might be fixated on a video game about which he or she knows everything there is to know. Hyper or hyporeactivity to sensory input, in which a person doesn't notice is overly sensitive to sound, like smells, touch, pain. I've shared about the hyper versus the hypoactivity and whatnot somewhere in one of my videos, which again I'll link in the icon and in the description box below me. So what does a practitioner, teacher, parent, or whoever that is dealing with that child mean when they say a child has autism, mild autism? Since there is no official definition here, however, of the term, every person using it has a slightly different idea of what it may mean to them. Sometimes the term is used when the individual is clearly autistic but also has significant spoken language and other skill sets. The term may also be used to help explain treatment decisions. Furthermore though, however, a person with mild autism may have advanced communication skills and academic ability, but they have very delayed social skills, severe sensory issues, and or extreme difficulties with organizational skills. If and when these manifest may also depend on their specific environmental situation that they're facing or they might be in as well, because obviously everything revolves around the who, what, where, we, and why category. The DSM-IV diagnostic criteria for ASD eliminates the strict age criteria that say delays in social interaction and communication must be apparent before the age of 3 to diagnose autism. Instead, they require that symptoms must be present at an early age, but may not fully manifest themselves until it's fully clear that a child cannot keep up with social demands of their age group regardless. And I have clearly mentioned about the diagnostic criteria so many times before, based on the levels of autism versus just the DSM-IV manual in general, which again I'll link in the icon and in the description box below me. To find out more, click on those with the timestamp available. So basically, in saying this, also DSM-IV includes 3 functional levels, as I said so many times before, to describe the severity of autism. People who are mildly autistic are generally considered to be at level 1, meaning they need relatively little support to function appropriately. However, some people with mild autism may need a great deal of support depending on the event, situation, or task or environment that they're in. For example, a person with mild autism may have sophisticated verbal skills but have difficulty reading another person's body language or emotion. The treatment for mild autism. With any type of autism, appropriate treatments may include the following: behavioral therapy. This kind of therapy uses rewards to teach expected or preferred behaviors, but then again, some people are fully against applied behavior therapy, which again I'll put it in the icon and in the description box below me to the reasoning of why this may be, so that you can gain a clear understanding. Play or developmental therapy. This therapy uses play-based activities to build emotional and communication skills, and obviously in saying this, basically that could also develop into just certain other play, you know, that they can do, be it like board games, or that Dragons and Dungeons or Dungeons and Dragons board game is really good for role playing, as well as also in saying this, basically in the role playing there could be other stuff that kids can mimic and copy from you when you do so. Drug therapies, there are medication that treat symptoms such as anxiety and mood disorders, which may be associated with mild autism. Many symptoms may do that. Speech therapy with milder autism is usually related to the conversation skills and body language. Occupational therapy is often helpful for sensory issues, be it, if they're sensitive to light, sensitive to touch, taste, or some other form of sensory issue. Physical therapy, many children with autism have low muscle tone or are physically awkward, so they'll need some of that. Some children with autism have to bear in mind may also benefit from treatments from others associated problems such as seizures, gastrointestinal issues, sleep disorders and issues such as obsessive compulsive disorders. These problems aren't part of autism per se, though, to let you know, but they are more common among autistic children. The bottom line here is that the term mild autism isn't especially elucidating, although it is still being used today. Getting a thorough evaluation from a psychiatrist or other doctors highly knowledgeable in this field about ASD is the best way to understand how your child is affected by the disorder and to address the specific challenges. Well, this quickly ends my video, so if you want to find out more basically on all about autism, I'll link it in the end card as of now, that you'll see where we're going with this, as well as in this of the end card. You'll see maybe a playlist, hopefully that will be useful for you guys to follow through as well. So no further ado, guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to, as I said before, many times before, at this point in time, I'm creating my merch. I'm praying and hoping before Christmas that my new designs will be up there, as well as in saying this, I'm gonna hopefully see if I can do some Christmas related ones for you guys as well. If not, then it will have to be put on hold until next Christmas. And also, in saying this, I've been doing my podcast. If you want to follow me on there, my podcast is Aspie Answers on most of the mediums, be it Spotify, Anchor, Blender, or whatever form of other ones that are readily available for you to listen to. And also, in saying this, also I'm creating a website, which is one of my projects of the many, as I said, as well as this podcast and my merch. So if you don't see any of these and more, and you want to support my future endeavours of advocating, educating, navigating for you all, as well as doing these future projects that's in the works right now, feel free to visit me on Patreon and support my cause. And every bit helps, obviously. For those of you who don't know what Patreon is, as I said before, many times before, Patreon is like a everyday form of funding for content creators, music creators, or whoever that may be seeking out funding for whatever means it may be, if it's means for the paying of their rent or what have you. But in my case, what I will cover for my costings is my future developmental stuff of softwares versus equipment that I'll need for my podcast versus my PC parts maybe, or what have you, as well as maybe a new camera and whatnot, as well as also, in saying this, hopefully some of it will cover maybe future attributes of maybe rent versus travel when the time permits and the border open here in New Zealand, because obviously, for those of you who are new today, I'm from New Zealand and I would love to try and maybe travel, hop, skip, jump to Aussie first and foremost before I do a long trip overseas, when I'm able. So if you want to donate big or small, it's no pressure, but like I said, much appreciated if you do want to support my endeavours on what I'm doing, because as I said, here in New Zealand we're lacking of resources and that, and I'm one of the many that are using her voice as an advocate / what have you, and that I'm hoping that with me and maybe a few others that will come on the bandwagon will share their stories and life experiences with autism and mental health or whatever it may be. So no further ado, guys, thanks for your support, thanks for watching. Do what love what do. Until next time, Aspie signing out, and I'll see you again soon. Ciao for now.